I've tried just about everything to get old. I've tried everything to get older from 50, 60, and 70. Do you think it's really difficult to do? No, it's actually pretty easy. But today's guest is someone that's going to be able to craft what it takes from 50, 60, 70, 80, and 100 years to live beyond. From trademarking something as easy as growing old is a choice. Karen Owick is going to explain what it takes to be great and her business, her philosophy, and just all about being great. Creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Karen, thanks for being on Shed Talk.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
I know, and I loved my intro because I really worked on that because we talked a little bit before this and really got to deep dive a little bit about what you're all about. You know what? I'm going to leave it where we're at there and just kind of tell me a little bit more about you.
Well, I am a certified clinical exercise physiologist, and that means I work with people that have heart issues and lung issues. My goal is to try to get my patients to be more functional and happy. That's very important, and I started my career years ago. I actually wanted to be a physical therapist when I started out. And I was during my internship, I realized, I don't want to just focus on one part of the body and one injured part of the body. I want to focus on the whole person, and cardiac rehab, that was the answer. And because in cardiac rehab, we're looking at lifestyle. We're trying to change and help people with the whole picture: nutrition, exercise, stress management, all of those factors that affect our longevity.
So
So
when you're
that's how I
dealing,
started it. So
okay, so now you got started into it and you created, so you created the business. And you do multiple of them. You're also on air right now, I understand, in the United States. So you do a show on Saturdays or something. Is that correct?
it's on I'm a their guest expert for Channel 4 in San Francisco. It's a news program, a 3-hour news program. So I will come on and do a health segment, and it will be anything from heart and exercise, nutrition, kind of the whole gambit, the whole lifestyle uh, picture of health. And so I've been doing that for 7 years, and every weekend. But this year I'm kind of tapering down, so I'll have a little more time for my fun on the weekends, which is now pickleball.
And now pickleball, is there an age category for the pickleball there?
Is there what? Oh, is
An
that?
age category? Is there an age category
Oh
that in
no,
pickleball they start all over?
no, and that's the beauty of pickleball. I used to play tennis years ago. The beauty of pickleball is that you can start at any age, and the learning curve is it's not so great like tennis is. So you can actually play a decent game when you first start out. So it's a lot of fun. People improve very quickly, which makes it fun. And the only thing is, there's a nickname for this game, and it's called cripple ball. So I really have to tell people, okay, it's a great sport, but these are the things you have to do to prevent being sidelined.
Oh my gosh. I hadn't tried it yet, and so I was thinking about it going, and now that you'd mentioned, I was thinking, "Well, that might be a great thing to start." So, one of the questions I wanted to ask and get into it,
Mhm.
because you've done so much, okay, so you've got into it, you started as an entrepreneur, starting off your business. Now you're on air talking about health, okay, and mindset, and you've written a book, you do speaking tours everywhere, okay, as well. Out of all that stuff that you've been doing, what's been the greatest challenge that you've had as an entrepreneur? Because you've started a business and being successful. What's been the greatest challenge in all three of those things?
Oh gosh. People like me that start a business, like, I am from the clinical background. So having to take on all the marketing side of running a business, that is the most difficult part, and sometimes that's like 75% of the business, trying to create and generate a clientele and get the word out about what you do. And sometimes, as a clinician, that's not what I want to do. I want to work with people and not do that whole marketing. And sometimes, and when you're starting out, uh, you may not have the funds to hire people to do all that. You're just kind of a one man band.
So when you're as the entrepreneur and now as I look at it, there's a couple ways that there's widgets that we sell. Okay. There's ideas you can sell that can be advertising, that can be whatever. Then there's also that you're selling an actual sustainable product that here's a car, here's a widget, you can touch and feel it.
Mhm,
Where you're actually selling is on the health side. And
mhm.
that seems to be a little bit more of a different approach. Because do you have government funding that helped on that? Or is it all private healthcare? Like, how did you actually wind up getting into that? Yes, you wanted to be a cardiologist, like you're in that field, but to open it up as a business.
So it all happened by accident because
Ah,
I was working at the local hospital in cardiac rehab. And as patients kind of move through the program, they go from phase 2 cardiac rehab to phase 3, and then the hospital dropped a lot that phase 3 program, that the more independent exercisers, and they wanted to follow me and continue. So I kind of started some classes on the outside, and kind of that's how it started. So it's kind of the my patients from, I was also teaching at Kaiser. They wanted more from me. So I started this program. And then the funny thing is that as I was moving along, finding that I was more pressed for time and I couldn't be everywhere, I decided that perhaps I'll start training people online. And this was in 2020, January 2020. And as soon as I started that and was ready to roll it out, COVID, everything shut down for COVID because of COVID. And the studio where I was working and having these mini classes, that shut down. So I was ready to go right when all that happened, and I had my program, my online training program ready, and it just kind of worked out. And my clients have been with me since then.
so it's interesting that all of a sudden, the things you know that you don't know, all of a sudden, COVID happens to hit. You'd actually already set yourself up. When did it become that aha moment that, oh my gosh, this is going to go big? Because I'm assuming it probably went pretty big pretty quick and
It
you had already had the infrastructure.
Exactly. It went big really quick. In the meantime, I was teaching. I said, "Oh, you know what? In the meantime, thinking the studio and will probably be closed for a couple months." And I said, in that couple months, I'll teach them cooking classes and from my home, and it would be a cooking class. And I thought, how can I make a cooking class fun and where they can actually taste the food, because that's what, when you go to an in-person cooking class, you're tasting the food. So I said, okay, I'll teach a class where they cook along with me. I'll give them the ingredients, and I won't tell them what we're making yet until it was time to start cooking. They had to kind of guess, okay, what is it that we're going to cook? And so they cook, it was a cook along. And then they cook and I cook, and at the end they get to taste the food, their food, what they made. And then that came really big, and I thought, oh wow, did I invent that, or did or was, because I never heard of it being done before. And that kind of took off, and that was really fun, but I had no idea that COVID was, that whole thing was going to last so long.
So when you did your cooking class and you obviously use Zoom, correct? How
Yes.
many people would you have on Zoom? Like or whatever the platform. Was it Zoom?
It was Zoom, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just I would just kept it small because, I like that intimacy. So, at the most, maybe 20, in a class, but it was fun. It was really fun.
Now, and you made all the food healthy,
Uh-huh.
correct? And it
Yes.
had to have a certain did it have a certain kind of feel to it? Like, obviously, fish, no meats, I'm assuming?
Mostly it was all plant-based, and you know
Plant-based.
what? Before that, right before COVID, it was in January, I taught a tofu 101 class. I don't know if you're a fan of tofu. It was a tofu 101 class. I cooked all like 7 different dishes, and I had an in-person class. And it was so popular, I had to do another one because I had such a long waiting list. And, I did it again, and that's when COVID hit. And so all of this stuff happened right before COVID. I had the tofu classes, and then I had the online training kind of just ready to go, and then I turned that into a online cooking class.
So you have your online cooking class,
Hmm.
okay? Okay, and you probably have one of your greatest recipes of all time on there as well, and I'm sure is it tofu or not tofu? And in the healthy side of it, because you wrote a book about this, correct?
Yes, yeah, about healthy eating.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the healthy eating in your book, what is the most popular dish of all time that you have in that book?
Well, the
Or
book,
it'd be your most popular one, that your best I guess your best recipe.
one that I made in the Tofu 101 class, I put quite several of them in the book because they had to pass the taste test before it made it to the book. So either it had to be kid tested, where my kids had to give it the thumbs up, or maybe some of my clients or patients. And one of the ones that was really popular, and I'm still told that they make it, is a pizza. It was on a flats. It's called a flatza, on a whole grain uh, flatza. It's called
Right.
flatza. And I made the toppings, and there was tofu in it, and lots of veggies. And they say that is one of their, and no cheese. And it was one of their favorite dishes. Another real favorite dish was a Mexican hot and spicy quinoa. And I think what people like the most is that my recipes are easy, and for that cooking class, everything had to be prepped and done and cooked in an hour. So things that are easy. And I think we're kind of on that trend of eating healthy, but it can't be laborious.
And so now you have all the two businesses running together. You're in COVID. Now you've taken off. What was the next step after that? Because now you've blown up on the other side, on the cardio side. Where did you take it from there and understand, like, the things you know that you didn't know? So you knew your business was blowing up. The greatest challenge in growing, what was that one more step that you had to take that you didn't know? And it's kind of like not knowing that COVID's going to last for 2 years and knowing, well, it could be 6 months. Then all of a sudden going, wait a second, I have to do another shift. Was there another door that opened up at the same time as that?
I wouldn't say it opened up, but the financial side was was a challenge because I'm kind of that type, working in a hospital setting, and having to charge patients or clients. That's just not my thing. And I'm the worst at it. So coming to terms with, I'm not making enough money because I'm not charging them enough for my time. Because I'd put so much time into and energy into everything I did, but it's not compensating for the amount of time that I put into it.
So how did you
That's
realize, or so when was that time that when you're doing that, that you realized, oh, I've got to actually start charging? You're nice. You're the nice person in the world, the greatest person in the world. And then realize that profit is not a dirty word. Okay. We actually have to make money to do this. And was that a big shift?
Yes, it was. Part of it Part of it was my having a long conversation with my 90-year-old aunt. And she set me down on New Year's Day. That's a big holiday for us. And she said, "Oh, what are you going to do differently this year? Because you need to work less and you need to have more fun because we never know. We have a lot, we have early onset heart disease and stroke in our family. So he goes, you never know what's going to happen to you. So you need to have fun now. You work too much. You do this. She's naming all the things that I do. She goes, you need to, what are you going to do differently? So that really made me think, okay, I need to put more value into my time, and so that I could, and then at the same time, my accountant saying, "Is this a hobby or is this a business?" Because you're just not charging enough because you're gonna lose money if you don't really start facing the fact that yeah, your time is worth more than what you're charging.
And it's interesting that because you just mentioned if is it a hobby, all right, or is it a business? Like, what is that one point in that aha moment? And then you're looking at when your aunt's telling you, okay, listen, life's too short, and we've got to go to the next phase, which actually dives into the next one. What does it take to have longevity at the ages of 50, 60, and 70, which you've actually laid it out perfectly, and that's the functional longevity. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And then how does that play into effect of everything that you're doing? Now, we can dive deeper into the longevity side of it. For people
Well,
that are 50
yeah,
and up.
yeah, and
Yeah.
most of my, like I mentioned, most of my almost all my clients and my patients are 50 and over. So, and the beauty of that for me is that I see patients on one side of the spectrum where they're not very healthy. So I can look at the younger side. I said, if you don't do this, and this, this is this is the picture that you're going to be facing down the road when you're 60, 70, 80, and beyond. So I feel like having seen that trajectory, that I can help people, and hopefully have some impact when they're young enough to change. Because you don't want to start working on things when you've already had a fall, or you've already have diseases that are difficult to manage. You want to get it early, and you want to prevent. Prevention is a lot easier than a cure. So
So
um,
when
go ahead.
oh, no, keep going. Sorry, I didn't wanna interrupt
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Keep
So
going.
when I talk about functional longevity, because a lot of people ask me, well, what is that? So longevity is how long you live, but functional longevity, I explain it that there are three layers to that, and the first layer is to living and being able to do the things that you need to do, and these are those activities of daily living, being able to eat and shower and toilet and dress yourself, all those activities that you need to do on a daily basis. And then the next level would be a function, would be doing the things that you want to do. A lot of my patients, they want to do certain things, they're not, but they can't, just simple things like, I wish I could mow the lawn. I wish I could fix that door that's not, hanging wrong. I wish I could do these certain things, but they're not able to physically. And then the top layer of function would be being able to do the things that you love to do. And these are things like travel and sports and being with friends and being very social. Those are the things that keep you happy. And you want to get to that top layer of functional longevity.
Hey, take a minute and smash that subscribe button, and let's get back to the episode. So how do you break that out with so a customer's coming into you, a patient's coming in for the first time, and they wanna have a talk about being proactive to go to the next level? Is there a certain rule of thumb that they should follow? and say someone say they're 48 years old, say, "You know what?
Mhm.
I have to change my life. What's the first thing I need to look at or
So,
do?"
so the first thing is I try to identify why they want to make some changes because that's real important to identify whether you're doing it because your doctor told you to do or your wife is telling you to do it or something like that because that is what's going to sustain you and uh, uh, keep you in that healthy lifestyle. You have to do it because of something that's internal and something that you want to achieve. With my veterans, uh, they want to be more functional. They're used to being the one that helps other people. So for them to have to take that role of being helped, it's really difficult for them. And what I like to do is kind of lay out a mission because veterans they are very mission driven because oftentimes they'll say, okay, what do we have to do and where is this going to go? And so I lay that all out. And but the most important thing is identify why they want to change. And sometimes it could be as simple as I want to be able to slide down a slide with my granddaughter, and that's my goal to be able to do that. I want to be able to get up and down off the floor so I can play with my grandkids or something like that. But really honing in on why they want to do it is important.
Now, when you're honing in on the why, what's important to them, do you ever find that they sometimes will have a shift into a different direction that they didn't know? I always call it, you don't know you're in jail until you break out. And they go, I didn't even realize that's my why. And then they go into a whole new different direction.
Yes.
And how do you handle that, or how do you guide them through the next phase of that?
So oftentimes, once they get started, they realize, "Oh my gosh, I feel really good," or "I had no idea I could do this." And that revelation is very powerful, and sometimes it was just a matter of being able to walk down the hall and go to the bathroom was a big thing. Now I want to go for a walk, or I want to be able to travel. So it's constantly their program is constantly evolving and changing to accommodate their new their new why. So it's just but it's a matter of keeping that communication open so that you hear what they have to say, and especially men don't always, uh, open up.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because men don't open up the older men don't open up, and because they're scared about it. It's like kind of like bladder cancer. Um, easy to detect, but
Mhm.
one of the most deadly ones out there do because nobody wants to have somebody grab their unit and say, "Oh no, if you're peeing yellow, there is a reason why you pee yellow,"
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then go in there. So, do you
right.
find that you're coaching a lot of individuals through the whole process of
Oh,
everything from the 50s, 60s, and 70s and all the way up?
yes, yes, very, very much so, and, with the VA, I meet with my patients every week, and we talk for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, and that first intake, that initial intake is usually an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. And I've had some men tell me, you know what? I've never talked to anyone this long before in my life. And you could tell my wife that because usually on the phone, I'll talk for a few minutes and then say, okay, see ya, and be done. And he goes, this is the first time that I've actually talked. And I get that a lot. And I think men have a lot inside. They just don't always know how to share it or feel like people may not be interested in hearing it.
Yes, and that is so true on that part of it. Finding the environment that they can be heard in makes a very strong point. Now, you've written a book, Athletes in Aprons. Is that correct? And when did you write that?
I wrote it. Oh,
So it's
another
story
thing.
time.
That's
Yes.
another thing. If it wasn't for COVID, my book would never have finished because we were locked down. It took me 5 years to finish the book. This is my book right here. Uh, it took me five years to finish it, and a life happens. You know, my dad was sick, or taking care of my dad, and he was living with us, and so I have to put it aside. But during COVID, we were locked down, and I was able to finish my book because I really it closed down any opportunities to go out and do stuff, other stuff. So thanks to COVID, I finished my book, and so it came out February on Amazon 22.
And what was your greatest challenge in writing the book?
Oh
Not
god,
being COVID, but not COVID.
it was uh, I it was editing it down. And one of the hardest things is, and I found this in the news too, is taking a concept and 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 compressing it down to easily easy sound bites. So taking a big thing and making it understandable. The book was written for the layman. It's not a textbook. I use humor. It's some sports speak because I really love sports. Um, so I try to keep it light and humorous at the same time. There are cartoons in it. so uh, so trying to stay on that and yet keep the concept simple. Sometimes I had to edit and edit and edit to make sure and have other people read it to say, do you get this? Because sometimes you get so much into your head and you know what you're talking about, but you don't know if that's always coming across as simply as you want it to be.
And it's interesting when you go back to when you're writing the book at COVID and we fast forward. So that was our past. Here
Mhm.
we are at the present. And then think of technologies today. And then here's your book. And one of the things you were talking about was bringing it in where we have AI to say, I'm going to put my book into AI. I'm just going to have it just tell me what it says. Okay. Just AI, just tell me the story of what it is. And then it becomes a whole different meaning just from technology.
And somebody told me, when are you going to write another book? And I said, never. When I pushed that published and it was done and it was out there, I go, okay, I'm done. That's it. And someone said, oh, you have to write another book. And I go, you know how much energy? Oh, just go with AI and have them come up with all your talking points. And I go, oh, I don't know if I could do that, but
Yeah. So what was one of your greatest failures that actually became a success?
hmm.
So it's one of those things I always go back. What was the one thing that you did say 5 years ago? Okay.
Mhm.
One little tiny thing. And then all of a sudden today you would thank yourself that you did that one little thing. And then today you look at the future and go, if I change today, 5 years from now, I'll be thanking myself going, wow, was I ever smart 5 years ago? What was that thing today that you could thank yourself back in the day that was could be your greatest success or greatest failures. Usually your greatest success becomes your greatest failure becomes your greatest success. Was there one of those
You
moments?
know, what first comes to mind is one of my greatest fears in overcoming one of my greatest fears and how that has changed me. And so it's not quite what you're asking for, but
But what was that then? What was your greatest
so I
fear?
was a competitive skier way back in the day. and and I was always challenged, always, and that real and going from team sports to individual sports was very different for me because I had nobody to, I mean, no one to blame, or
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was all on me if I succeeded or failed. And this one day, our coaches said, "Okay, it was a great spring day. I loved skiing when it was nice and sunny and warm." And he said, we're gonna go ski the Palisades. And I go, the Palisades? There's no lift up the Palisades. The only way to the Palisades is hiking. And this is at Squaw Valley, which is now called the Palisades, Tahoe. And uh, and they're known for their granite-laden cliffs, and we had to hike. We spent half the day first hiking up, and then when we got there, looking down as far as what we had to do to ski down and get to the bottom was so frightening to me. So frightening. I mean, I was a strong skier. I loved steep, but this was beyond what I ever expected, because in order to get into this chute, which was so narrow that it was springtime, so there wasn't a whole lot of snow left. So we had to turn so fast so we don't run into the rocks. And he says, you know what? You're going to start from here. You're going to ski straight off, jump off the cliff, and land. You got to land with your skis pointed straight down and make quick turns. I go, oh, I was so scared. The first guy that won left. He wanted to go first. He was the best skier of our team, and he fell. And so that alone made me really scared. But I focused. I ended up jumping off the cliff, doing exactly what he said. I made it to the bottom with all my body parts and skis intact. But that was the most exhilarating experience. But I learned so much just from having to do that. And when I even raised my kids, I said, you know what? We don't get our self-esteem from people giving us little awards, participation awards. The only way you build your self-esteem is when you are challenged and you raise your sights really high and you achieve. Other and when you do that, that's when you feel good about yourself. It's not something that's given to you, it's something that you have to do yourself. And so for everything that I've done in my life, I've always thought, okay, I have to persevere. I mean, I probably fail, but I'm going to go for it anyway, because that's the only way I'm going to feel good about my mission. That was
So
a
that's a big thing that all of a sudden you remember that feeling and that emotion of scared and going down, and which is very scary when you look at that.
mhm.
So if you look at what was your greatest challenge of 2024 last year? Your greatest challenge.
Oh, 24. I'd say I'd say changing my whole business model, I think. Yeah, that was as far as my work at the VA is pretty much consistent, and um, but so I'm looking at my other piece, the my private clients, and that business is really having to refocus and change my business model, and to see what will work, what will make money, and really having to put more value into my time. I think that's the biggest challenge for me in when it comes to running a business.
So now turning it, okay. Now we're going to be going. What's going to be happening in your future of 2025?
2025. Um, you know, I've I've taken up pickleball, and I never thought I would play. I mean, my husband even gave me a pickleball paddle a couple years ago, and I go, I don't, I don't want to play pickleball, because I always thought it was kind of a older person's sport. And I said, I played tennis. I don't want it to ruin my tennis. And he goes, when was the last time you played tennis? I go, well, a few decades ago, maybe. But and then I saw pickleball on TV, and I was so impressed at how athletic the players were. Mostly the younger players, very fast, very agile. I said, okay, I want to play that. And so I started playing this last summer, and I play every day for several hours a day. And I want to be able to integrate pickleball into something. And And that's where I see 2025. I don't know what that will be yet, but I feel like I there's got to be something to kind of tie everything together, with a sport that I love. I think sports are one of the best ways for people to get excited about moving. Uh, because not everybody likes exercise. You say exercise is kind of like, oh, you get this look.
Yeah.
And so I really like to push sports. And I said, sports are, you have a team. You have your built-in accountability buddies. You have something to work for and towards, and you have a goal. And when you do conditioning, it's conditioning to improve your performance in the sport, and it's not so much exercise. Um, so there are a lot of advantages, and I really like to push sports, especially things that, for people with Parkinson's. Table tennis is one of the best sports they found for improving uh, Parkinson's.
Oh, and that's amazing because when you start thinking about it and then breaking it down to each concept, because you're going to create something in 2025 that's going to actually pull everything together that you're doing, because of sport, because of activity, and it goes back to the things you know that you don't know, and which will make it very special. Now, to sum things up and then everything, what's the one takeaway that you would tell anybody out there over 50, 60, 70, whatever they are? What would be one takeaway that you would suggest or tell somebody in life or in general, just as a tidbit?
Well, one of the things I think people put a limit on what they can do. And that's kind of one of the things I learned from skiing. There are no limits. You think that, oh yeah, I'm here, but there's always a here and here. So uh, when I work with patients that have had heart issues and heart attacks, and my older patients, and this is a true story. One of them said to me, you have to remember, I'm 80. And I said, yeah, that's okay. I don't age discriminate, because you can do the same things that some of the 60-year-olds can do. So and he goes, well, that's not what I meant. I said, yeah, I know what you meant. But once I set that bar up a lot higher, they will go for that, especially men. They want to please and they want to achieve. And that's one of the things that I will always be told at the end. I never thought I could do this. And that's the most rewarding thing i I get from doing what I do. Is I never thought I'd be able to do this. Um, and that's a great feeling. And it's great for them, because then they say, well, I didn't know I could do this, then maybe the next time I'll be able to do that. So and so that's where my quote comes from. Your age is a given, growing old is a choice. And that's exactly right. We may be 80, but if you want to be old, that's on you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Karen, for joining me here on Shed Talk. I would hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe, smash that button, and see our cool notes and all that great stuff. Again, Karen, thanks for joining me on Shed Talk.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, Kevin.
Now you know. Shed Talk.